Hi, welcome to More Christ. Today I'm going to look at something slightly different from usual. In response to the considerable interest in the many books which I've shared on my channel, some of which have come up repeatedly in different videos, I want to discuss just 5 popular level books that I think that every Christian should read. And today I'm going to focus on non-fiction. The criteria that I've chosen includes that each book be suitable for most persons, not just for specialists. Each one will be ecumenical and useful for all sorts of Christians. Each book should be readable and written in a rich narrative style. Some of them will be more challenging than others, and some are quite rigorous, but I think that each is readable, as I say, and each one should help us towards metanoia, or a change of mind, and help us to be conformed to Christ and his church. And each book should focus on issues of vital concern for all Christians and for non-Christians alike. And each one will provide a balance between a certain pertinence to their time and a certain timeless quality. Of course, you can form your own criteria, and I'd love to hear some of your comments in the comments section below. Let us know what you would choose as some of the best Christian books and why. Let's begin then with Father Schmeman's For the Life of the World. So for the Life of the World reveals first of all the religious nature of man, and indeed the sacramental nature of the cosmos itself. It shows us that God can and must be known through the creation. Father Schmemann helps us to reattend to the liturgical patterns of reality which bring us the true, the good, the beautiful all together in embodied living. Let me give an example from the book then. So he gives us the example of marriage, which is properly sacramental. This helps us to blow apart the kind of sacred, secular binary that many of us are used to. And he shows that it's ultimately meaningful. Yes, it's psychologically enriching and so on, but it also brings us into the life of God, the Trinity himself, who is love. He speaks to us as aching, as yearning persons, and shows that God came for all of these parts of us and for the cosmos itself. Christ came, as the title suggests, for the life of the world. Secondly, I wish to look at Nancy Pearcey's magnificent book, Total Truth. Like the previous book by Father Schmemann, this excellent book helps us to refocus on the big picture. It calls us to question our underlying assumptions, the stories that we tell ourselves, who we trust, and why we do so. Professor Pearcey brings together sharp cultural criticism, which goes through pop culture, art, philosophy, science, and a variety of fields. She shows us how and why complex ideas trickle down and inform how we see, think, and live in the world. So in a wonderful, rich narrative style, she deconstructs the two-story kind of private public dichotomy, the compartmentalization of the modern and the postmodern and various disintegrated and partial worldviews. Then she simultaneously undermines the romanticism that many of us fall into and the modern scientism that many of us similarly fall into, ultimately revealing the integrated nature of reality as it reveals itself to us, whether theologically, psychologically, philosophically, or a variety of ways. And she shows us that the total truth of the gospel is both private and public, it's sacred and secular, it's for elite and popular, scientific and literary. And she tells us the greatest story ever told by integrating many insights from the greatest art, literature, philosophy, science, and all these fields in the service of the true and living God. The third book I want to look at then is a wonderful one I read this year by Nabil Qureshi, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. This book is a beautiful tale of a man who's obsessed with the truth. He was willing to forego all to live an authentic life. That included things like fissures within his family and his culture, and indeed intellectual respectability, all in this kind of honor-shame framework that many of us might take for granted. And this magnificent book helps us to understand the power, the cosmic power of salvation and its drama through a tale of deep friendship, which is peppered through with carefully thought out philosophy, wrestling, and history, and it attends with passion to the questions of life and death and of ultimate importance. This book is a very emotional book and most moving throughout, I think. It's really gripping as a drama and convicting for the reader. Certainly how it came across to me. And it also resonated with me at a very personal level and coming to know this Abba, the Father, the true and living God. He's not just some abstract force which we must give our lives to arbitrarily, but the source, form, and everything of love itself. This book really spoke to me on that level and brought me to tears on a number of occasions. I hope it can have similar impact on some of you. Number 4 then is by N.T. Wright. Could have been any number of N.T. Wright books. He's a brilliant author, but I'll go with the New Testament and People of God, as it really launches us on a profound adventure, and that's continued through a whole series of books, which, like Nabil, they wrestle with history and who is this strange God whom we worship? What do the earliest records reveal about him, and how did he impact individuals and society around him? This is a pretty meaty and academic book in some ways, but it's also most readable, and the joy that Tom exudes comes through in his dynamic prose. And like Professor Pacey, he shows how high and low can come together and meet in fascinating ways. And he goes into the story of stories itself. All the while he reminds us that Christ came to save the cosmos, and we as the church are actually called to an integral role and have a key part to play in that. This is as relevant today as it was in the first century, and we must attend again to Christ's revolutionary and radical movement in history and to the adventure to which we're called. The fifth book then I want to look at today is by the late great Eugene Peterson. It's his classic Long Obedience in the Same Direction. This is taken from a Nietzsche quote and is actually surprisingly subversive and profound. It contradicts in many ways our dominant, self-absorbed and materialistic and indeed quite short-sighted culture at a variety of levels. Peterson reminds us that we're here for the long game, like his namesake Jordan Peterson. This is the game that's worth playing, the perfect iterated game. It's a profound challenge for many of us to live in Christ together, and we must forego our banal consumerism and much of the mundane so that we might be handsomely rewarded with joy in our relationships with God and with other people. And Peterson returns us to the metrics of grace through profound meditations on the Psalms. Again, he's a beautiful stylist who brings romance and friendship and all that makes life worth living to the forefront of our minds in this wee book. And he balances this out with the quite learned philosophy and was a serious academic in his own right. Peterson offers us a chance to reconsider our habits, the malforming effects of modern technology, our dominant consumerist mentality, and how it malforms us to worship these lesser gods, which really aren't worth worshipping. That is, as Bishop Barron would say, of given ultimate worth to. And how do we know that? We know that through what we spend our time with and things like that. And the journey that he embarks on is a joyful pilgrimage of wrestling, of quiet time together, of rich conversations, good music, acts of love and service, and joyful revelry. And that's another magnificent book. Just let me know then some of the books that you think would be some of the best popular level books for Christians or non-Christians to read to try and get a handle on the Christian story. And I look forward to hearing some of those, and God bless you all.